It's really a great honor to be here and privilege to be part of this 5-day program. And stress management, a very, very topical one. But though the title is stress management, we will touch on various aspects. Ultimate result is stress. Let me share my screen here.
Okay, sir, now you are a co-host, so you can share.
Yes. Hope you are able to see this.
Yeah, it is visible, sir. It is visible.
Okay, I will just put it in there. Yes. So, when the corporate training programs, what we try to touch on is the lifestyle changes, because stress is not something to be looked at in isolation. We have to look at the totality of the lifestyle, the way we live, and see to what extent we can adjust or modify that. And that is basically what we want to touch upon. A lot of this has been already touched upon in the first session by Dr. Rahul. And we will only be again re-emphasizing some of these points. You will see a lot of things being repeated in the program. Nothing wrong with that. It is mainly for reinforcing and a better understanding. So the coverage that we want to give, one is some thoughts on the lifestyle management and its importance. As we said again, we look at it holistically. It is just not one aspect. Everything we try to look at. And also understand some more details on the science behind stress. Stress is very, very natural. And the right word is basically, the right usage would be not elimination of stress. That is impossible. What we say is we become stress fit. Just like physical fitness, we become fit for managing stress. Stress is inevitable. First principle, we say accept it as a fact of life and then work around it. We see what are the ways to become stress fit. And obviously, all of us are going to talk about this, the role of meditation, a very simple mental practice. And how does it facilitate this whole lifestyle and stress management? Now, the experience part of the meditation, you're going to look at it in the afternoon. What we will touch upon is some ideas about it that will be helpful in understanding it better. So we'll have a complete interactive session. Any point of time, you can just basically put a question in the chat box as we discuss this. Then we can have a completely interactive session. So first interaction, I want you to just have just some reflection. What is triggering me today? Okay, in the context of COVID crisis, COVID is just saying now it is all changing. We call it, Omicron or Omicron, whatever is that. So what is the trigger? And secondly, what is the behavior that the trigger drives? What do I do? Okay. And more importantly, we are going to emphasize throughout our approach to heartfulness itself, it's very, very important is to focus on feelings. You see, there is a thinking aspect for us. There is a feeling aspect of it. So how do I feel in these situations? I just want you to reflect on a few, just about 2 minutes, not more than that, just to have some interaction help. So think about, put it in the chat box. What is the trigger? What is the behavior? What is the feeling? Just 2 minutes. We'll have some interactions like that as we go along. Just feel free. Triggers are very important because we have to be aware of the triggers of stress. And it basically drives me to do certain things. And how do I feel in these situations? Even the trigger and feeling would certainly help. So I'll just pause for 2 minutes. Then put your thing on the chat box. Whatever you feel, just put in the chat box. So fear of health, excellent. Dr. Ravi Prakash. anger, okay? Anger, fear, all these are important feelings. Anxiety, yes, absolutely. We have had recently, I am from Chennai, and we have had recently rains that caused us a lot of anxiety. Unusual rains. I'm sure you have experiences. Fear of loved ones' health and anxiety. Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. Uncertainty of life, personal and professional. Absolutely. I think we got some points. We can go on and on, but just this is just to trigger some thought process in us and have some interaction model. So the triggers are there for common for all of us, and there is a certain immediate action that we get into, and more importantly, the feeling that it generates. So one of the points that is often highlighted in stress is stay focused on the bodily feelings and sensations. That is basically the teaching that you find in many of the methods of meditation also. In heartfulness, we say, feel, how do you feel in the heart? So many of us, we don't cultivate this habit of listening to the feelings. And if you look at some of the other meditational techniques like mindfulness, they will try to focus on feeling of the bodily sensations. For example, the previous exercise that you have done, at the end of it, how do you feel the impact of the yoga? Relaxed feeling. So this feeling plays a very important role. You will see that as you go further into that. So let me proceed. Now, thank you for your reactions, interactions. So lifestyle management is a key to executive productivity. When you say executive, I mean all professors, and they are all in the academic field. So it has acquired quite a lot of importance in today's context, mainly because, as we have already seen, the world and its impact on lifestyle. And you see, it is no big thing to say that climate change is happening around the world. We are getting very unusual rains, unusual kind of climate changes impacting. You see today in the world, in US, I mean, number of places where hurricanes and things like that are devastating. The recent COVID is just one aspect of it, but the demanding work situation. In business language, we used to call it VUCA world: volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. And this has an impact on the physical and mental health. We call this psychosomatic relationship. This is what Dr. Rahul was talking about, that the physical aspect and the mental aspect, both. Mental could be worrying, that has an impact on the physical. So when you manage both physical and mental, then we become a little bit of develop ability to manage the stress. So stress, anxiety, and why this holistic approach? Today, sleep is given a lot of importance. What is the major problem today some people are having? Sleep deprivation. If you don't sleep sufficiently, the lot of repair work that the body is expected to do, that gets affected, and that results in hypertension, diabetes, and all that. So if we get one, the other is free for us. Okay, if we get hypertension, diabetes is free, something like that. So sleep deprivation. That's why when we say lifestyle, we are talking about several things, not just one aspect of stress, which is the result of several things. And sleep deprivation may be due to stress, okay? And food habits, that is also one of the important aspects of lifestyle management. So food as medicine. is the way to think about it in today's context. And improper food and sleep deprivation leads to addiction. And addiction is one way we cope with stress, but not a very healthy way. So this is all what is setting the context. Can we change is a question. Yes, obviously, many of these habitual behaviors can be changed because the people who are researching in this field, they have highlighted this idea called neuroplasticity, which means habits can be changed. Any habit we have. Stress is a habit, actually. It is a natural response. And we have sort of cultivated that, or rather behaved like that. Some people are not stressed at all, I've seen. Despite any kind of situation, they are calm because that is the way they have been wired in the brain. So neuroplasticity is a concept that we use, which means brain neuronal pathways can be trained to change the behavior. There is a beautiful book that I recommend. You can look at it. It's called Atomic Habits by James Clear. It's a book, and later on you can refer to that, even a summary of it. A lot of these books have summaries and YouTube to summarize. Even if you don't read the whole book, we can get the gist of it. So it is the way how to form habits and change. Okay. So corporate response to that, lot of today corporate, when I say corporate, I mean the general response. The world response is wellness. Today, it's called a wellness industry. And a lot of awareness programs, just to understand. This program, 5 days you are spending on stress. It's a real, extensive discussion on this. Integrated programming, that covers various aspects of lifestyle, right? It is just not one aspect. So there will be physical exercises you have done just now, the yoga part of it, the breathing, pranayama that you are taking. It's very, very important for creating a healthy physical, what you call composition that helps automatically, has an impact on the brain. So breathing and the mind, the body and the mind, they are interconnected. We try to leverage it to manage stress. In some places, they use dance, they use music, is also a very excellent thing. Food and nutrition is a major subject by itself today. We will come to that, some general principles. We are not getting into the details of food and other things, but generally some ideas of that. Sleep management, stress management, that's what we are going to discuss. Connect everything to stress and sleep management. And you find there is a lot of awareness and discussions and some form or the other, like the Dr. Rahul Mehrotra said in his first session, extensive worldwide research on this aspect of meditation. Why? It is because it's a very, very simple, natural tool, and that can have profound or significant impact on not only stress, every other aspect of life. So mindfulness, worldwide, there is a lot of activity. If you go to companies like Google, there's quite a lot of thing on mindfulness. And today, heartfulness. This program is going to highlight the importance of a wonderful technique or method called heartfulness. That will give you quite a lot of impact. So some more interactions we will have. One of the aspirations all of us have is basically to perform at the optimal level. The term peak performance has been highlighted, basically because this has come from sports. In sports, they talk about peak performance. Performance anxiety is also one reason for stress. Okay. So how does it impact? What does the science of it reveal? We can just have a look at it. We'll look at different components and tie up them together. How is performance related to stress? Some people have anxiety of performance. So I want you to reflect and put it in the chat box. Second interaction we will have. There are times when all of us would have performed very well. Okay, we call it peak performance, performs to the satisfaction. Question number 1 is that, and question number 2 is, what is preventing us from this performance? So what did I feel? What did it feel like when I was at the peak? What did I feel? And second one, I want to reflect any one factor that you feel free, just whatever comes to your mind. What is preventing you from doing that? It is related to stress because many of us are anxious before performance. There is a stress before a performance. So joyful, full of energy. Excellent, Dr. Ravi Prakash. Yes. When you feel joyful, you're full of energy, obviously. At the peak performance, you feel that. Look ourselves. Okay, it's saying basically you're trying to be aware of yourself. You're able to perform better. I understand it that way. So we're talking about satisfaction. When you're, I'm not saying after you complete it, but when at peak, how do you feel? Contented. Okay. What is preventing it? Satisfied, but anxiety to stay there. Excellent. Very nice. Anxiety is one which can prevent peak performance. Again, we can't avoid anxiety, but how to deal with it, we'll see. Any other point? Just whatever that comes to your mind. Happiness followed by how to read it. Okay. Happiness when I perform at my peak, but the problem is the fear of losing it. There is an anxiety that we tend to lose it. Excellent. I mean, I think this is fine. Thank you for some reflections on it. Now, I just want to give you one idea here. Yeah. So that typically, have you seen, you can see, you have said, I enjoy, right? Enjoyment, happiness. Confident, you feel confident when you perform at your peak. And you'll also notice you are able to focus and you're calm. These are some of the things that when we perform at the peak, our consciousness is in an expansive condition. What is expansive condition? Very, very easy to understand. Look at the opposite. Sometimes it's very easy to understand one by looking at the opposite. What is fear? Right? Somebody said fear, anxiety, anger. Somebody said expectations, distraction. That is a contracted condition of the consciousness. So it's very easy to understand that. We restrict ourselves. We try to resist ourselves. We try to, prevent that consciousness from expanding. So this has been the finding of people. That state of mind is very, very important in time of decision making. When you are in a calm state, somebody said calm, you are in an expanded state of consciousness. What happens? We are going to look at it. What is the result of this? But if you are in a contracted state of consciousness, agitated, anxious, nervous, emotional, or frightened, typically this is what you will hear in many of the lectures here. What is that? The response is fight. When we are in a contracted state of consciousness, one could be fight back, aggression. Second is flight, leave that situation and run away. Or third is sometimes we don't even do anything. We freeze completely. We are completely, I have seen when very stressful situation, people simply freeze. They don't know what to do. So fight versus flight versus freeze. This is basically what happens to the mind. Why does it happen? We will come to that in a minute. Before that, another book. Again, when I say book, you can buy the book and read it, or look at the YouTube for a summary of it. You will get the essence of it. This is a great book that we have identified from the sports. This is called The Inner Game of Tennis. This is by a tennis coach, Timothy Galway. What he said is, everybody is capable of performing very well, but the problem is interference. Somebody said already anxiety to retain it. So potential minus interference is equal to performance. He said peak performance is a function of your potentiality. Potential is available. You have trained yourself. You have prepared yourself very well for a seminar. But on the stage, there is an interference which is causing some anxiety. It is like a batsman in cricket analogy. Somewhere he is in 95, 96. Up to that, he is batting brilliantly, beautifully. But the moment he is going to think about his 100, there is some interference by the mind, anxiety, and many people have gotten out at that stage. So the analogy from the sports, right? Now, peak performance summary, potential minus interference. That is, interference is what causes stress. So to deal with it, what do we need to do? So we will see that. Now, some facts. This is very important because these are natural and reason for the stress. What is that? One, in a day, this has been scientifically stated. You can refer to that. We are having almost 70,000 thoughts per day. This is being cited as in all researches. So mind is just basically flowing like a river. Very interesting fact they say is 47% is not connected at all with what we are doing. Half the thoughts are not connected with what we are at the moment doing. And another 2/3 of that you find are random thoughts. They are negative, right? So 95% of the thoughts are driven by subconscious mind, which are not in our direct control. So we are a product of our subconscious mind. This is what the science says. Why this arithmetic of thought is important? This is one of the major causes for stress, because later on we are going to see also Dr. Rahul talked about it, that ability to pay attention to what is being said is one way we can manage the stress. So there is a concept in managing stress. It's called the power of now. So be in the present. We are not able to be in the present because of these factors which cause the distraction. So and what is very interesting is we have been found and told that we are negatively what we call biased. Many thoughts of negative bias. There is a reason for it. We will think about it. It's nothing wrong with it. What do you mean by a negative bias? You put me near a snake and say, think positively, it will not bite you. No. My fear, immediately there will be a negative. It is likely to bite me. So that negative thing is there. So even if I want to be happy, I need some training. Okay, these are all causes of stress. So what these scientists have said, brain scientists have said, they have said that default mode network of the brain. What is this default mode network? By nature, there is this random thoughts that is coming. Many of them are negative, past problems, future worries. Okay, so all sources of stress. This is what is causing the stress. Okay, a little bit about the structure of the brain. That is very important because stress originates from where? What happens when there is a situation or a trigger for stress that we talked about? It can happen at the time of performance, at the time of many situations. Now, in the brain, you will hear in this program number of times, even in the Google, you can just check amygdala hijack. Okay, what is this amygdala? It is one part of our brain, which is basically the security guard. Immediately it will come into action, protection. It will try to protect. So when there is stress, the first thing that is getting triggered is this amygdala. What happens because of that? Entire energy is hijacked by that for immediate action. I see a threat. Okay, I see a threat. Recently, I experienced it when this water level, unusual rains were there in Chennai. Water was entering into our electricity board room, getting into that room. So it's a huge flat, so many flats are there. And what is actually to be done immediately? Everything else shuts off. Even the rational brain, rational thinking shuts off in that emergency because it's happened so suddenly. And immediate action, I have to do something. So this is what is called the amygdala hijack. What is wrong with it? Nothing wrong. This is the natural protection given to us by nature to act immediately. I can't be relaxed at that time. Okay. But the problem is if this hijacks completely into a fight versus flight response, the thinking, rational thinking part of the mind, which is called the prefrontal cortex, it is completely shut down, completely shut off. It is not available for immediate action. That has to think rationally what is to be done. So what is stress management? Stress management is nothing but making sure this doesn't hijack. You can't prevent it. It will happen. But making sure it is not hijacking and some energy is left to handle, rationally think about and take some action. Many of us would have experienced it. Sometimes suddenly in an airport, I see in a foreign country, we are traveling and suddenly you find your passport missing. That's amygdala hijack. We all have faced this. And interestingly, there are other things you are going to learn in this program. There are other parts of the brain which are really creative. None of them can get activated if you are highly stressed. And the problem with war-prone, terrorist-prone kind of situation, environment, we find people suffer a lot of this amygdala hijack, and that affects the physical system. You know, a lot of experiments have been done in this, and this is a biology of thinking. So we have on the one hand, random thoughts, and secondly, a trigger of the stress completely hijacking our entire system that we are unable to think and act. So this is the other thing to be understood. So what happens here? Typically, amygdala perceives a threat in the information received. An emotional trigger could be fear, anger, whatever it is. So what happens? It gets hijacked and there is a reaction. Rational brain is unable to handle it. And there's direct flow of blood to the limbs to act immediately to enable fight, flight, freeze response. And science says takes nearly 45 minutes to recover. And during this time, decision making is likely to be reactive. Nothing wrong with it. It can be a correct decision also, but it's reactive and not a responsive one. So it results in poor decision making, wasted time, effort, and repeated hijacks by the amygdala can cause quite a lot of problems. This is the root cause of the stress. So what to do with it? So the biology of stress, blood flow to the limbs, immune system is put on hold, and the thinking brain is not available for action. Okay. Now, one of the ways to deal with it, and in the science, if you remember, Dr. Rahul Mehrotra briefly mentioned about that our brain has sympathetic nervous system and parasympathetic nervous system. That is, one is that will trigger an action, the other will trigger relaxation, a response of relaxation. So when you have this amygdala hijack, what is suggested? Later on also people will talk about it. A few seconds breathing will help us to deal with the stress. So what do we do there? They are suggesting breathe with the left nostril, close the right nostril, and breathe with the left nostril. So what do you do here? This is, as you can see, closing the right nostril and taking deep breathing with the left nostril, gently. So deep breathing definitely helps. And left nostril breathing, when you have a little bit of agitation, left nostril breathing helps. What does it do? It basically tries to activate the parasympathetic nervous system, trigger a relaxation response, and it helps you to deal with that stressful situation. Even normal deep breathing, a bit of relaxation will help you to deal with this immediate amygdala hijack. So people have researched and finally come up with the following important things from the lifestyle perspective. What are they? One, managing stress, understand triggers. When there is a trigger, understand how to deal with it. Could be simple deep breathing, left nostril breathing, relax, create some kind of mechanism in you to deal with that trigger. Second important thing in the lifestyle change, I need to monitor my sleep cycle. Very, very important to monitor it and make sure I get enough sleep. Between 11 and 4 is very, very important to sleep. And people say, go manage it seriously from the health perspective. Of course, we will have a lot of work-related requirements, but we need to manage it. That is called recovery. Why sleep is important is because our human body is a self-healing by nature. It is a self-healing mechanism. We don't have to do anything. It will heal itself. So there is one school of thought. They say no medication. So simply rest, sleep properly, body will automatically use its energy, because 1/3 of its energy it is spending only on repairing. We don't allow it to repair. Fitness is very important. That's why we are very happy in this program. We are having that fitness in the morning, in the second session every day. So at the end of the 5th day, we will automatically would have formed that habit of fitness. You are creating a neuronal path in your brain to make that feeling. And nutrition is another important thing. So lifestyle is consisting of physical exercises, nutrition part, or the food as medicine, sleep. And we will come to that, how to address all these elements. People have done a lot of research. Work-life balance has been mainly the cause of stress. That is why so much response all over the world. And another important fact, they say, when people are under great stress, they are less likely to exercise. And they are more prone to addiction. And less likely to eat healthy. You buy a lot of junk food people eat, and I've seen some people eating a lot when they are stressed. Right? So these are some of the facts of negative side of stress. So stress is not always a bad thing. As I said, stress fitness is very important. Stress is also good. They call it EU stress. Some stress, some tension is required for action. That's why when you do the right nostril breathing, you need some action. The action is triggered. So I try to, if I feel very lazy, I try to do right nostril breathing. And people also do in the morning to balance both left nostril and right nostril breathing. It's a very important yogic technique that will come to you later. Enhanced capacity to engage and perform creates a feeling of satisfaction and happiness. But distress is what we are basically looking at it. It is a negative thing that can affect the performance. Okay. What do we do with sleep? As we said, sleep is basically a professional skill, as it is called now. It is a key tool for mental and physical recovery. Lack of sleep certainly impairs thinking. It impairs response time, agility, and creativity. The science behind it is sleep is recovery. 1/3 of the energy is devoted or allowed for recovery. So rest is very important. And when we say sleep, please note one thing. We are not just saying sleep alone. Even relaxation can give you that kind of sleep benefits. Okay, relax. When you are feeling tired, take a few minutes to relax and then start acting. That's all the idea behind this here. There's a lot of research. I think later on you're going to be discussing this in detail, but I'm only touching on very, very certain aspects of it. So much of research. They talk about light sleep, and then they talk about rapid eye movement, another state of sleep. They analyze the sleep, and then there is a deep sleep. So this is measured and how our brain waves are during these different states of sleep. And in 8 hours of sleep, we go through different cycles from very, very light sleep to a dreamful sleeping. That is what they call a state called rapid eye movement. And brain waves, get altered. So the analysis basically is to understand that in the deep sleep, really, certain waves of the brain frequencies generated that gives a tremendous amount of rest and recuperation for us. That's the importance of sleep. So there is a separate session on this. They will talk about it. So lifestyle change, again, to summarize here, sleep, food, physical fitness. These are all combined in one, and managing the stress. Another important idea we have, if you Google it, you have what is called the power of pause. What does this mean? This is used, as we said, the biology of stress. Immediately there is a trigger and one part of the brain gets hijacked and overactivated. That habit of the brain, how do we change it? Substitute it with another habit. Pause, right? The way to deal with it. We talked about the left nostril breathing. Another is pause a little bit immediately. Relax a little bit, okay? Be aware. Maybe take a few deep breaths, slow down. Create a space, a small interval. That should be the first ideal response. What is the advantage of this? It diffuses that amygdala hijack. Okay. That pause, it diffuses. One moment of pause and somewhere we have read that because of the absence of this pause, immediate action, lot of even murders have taken place, in the fit of anger. People have not just given that pause. So that much is the importance of that pause. Many times it's very difficult because we are in a fit of that hijack that we're unable to act. Key question is, how do we cultivate and internalize the practice of pause? Many of these things. Okay, so this is where one of the important changes in the lifestyle recommended to deal with stress, as I said, it is not one isolated thing. Can we get into some practice of meditation? How does it help us? We are not going to discuss the method of meditation, which is going to be basically the afternoon session. You're going to experience it, but we will look at some ideas about meditation. It is one practice that prevents amygdala hijack, that helps you to pause in a situation and allow a natural response to act and use the rational part of the brain better, creative part of the brain better. So much has been emphasized about meditation. So before I go into meditation, any questions now? You can just type it in the chat. We can take one or two questions and then go into the other part. Now, are you not able to hear me properly?
Sir, you are audible. You are audible.
Okay. Somebody has typed that. Okay, please, if there is any questions in so far we have discussed before we go into the next aspect of meditation. One or two questions you can type.
Participants,
you can also ask me. Yeah, please.
You can interact.
Okay, about this, there will be lot of answers coming for this. This is going to be the rest of this whole program will center on meditation and also the other 8 things. The right time for doing meditation, obviously, morning. Okay, there'll be a lot of discussion on this further. Morning is the best time. They will talk about it. There is an evening routine they will give you. See, whatever we have discussed, there are techniques to deal with it. They will talk about it in a short while. On the earlier part, you have anything about, what we discussed about generally on the brain, how does it work and how the stress. I'm sure that most of you are familiar with it. Some of you may be more knowledgeable than this, but this is some general knowledge that we should be aware of. Performance minus interference. Then what about the goals? We said, don't they come under interference? Yes, we perform only to achieve a certain goal. Maybe the batsman has a goal of scoring a century. Yes, certainly. But when he comes closer to the performance goals, the interference starts happening. And we need to have some mechanism by which we manage that interference. That's the main thing. There are people, one of the great, again, taking analogy from sports, some great players have commented that whatever happens in one particular ball, just forget it. Possibility is you are completely beaten by that, or you would have scored a 6, whatever it is, forget it, face the next one afresh. It is again a habit, going back to the habit. And some kind of meditation will certainly help reducing the interference. The interference can be reduced by a technique that will be taught to you later, tomorrow in Heartfulness. It's called cleaning the impressions of the past. That will really help you to reduce the interference. Can the performance-based stress be minimized? Goal-based, yes, it can be minimized. Obviously, that's one of the main purposes of meditation. Will certainly help you to take a balanced view, but still you need to achieve it. That goal is there, but we can definitely manage the stress. All that it is basically requirement is we need to be aware of these triggers, and by cultivating certain lifestyle changes, certain practices, we can certainly be able to. That's the whole purpose of this program. We need to have performance goals, but certainly the stressors needs to be minimized. It can be easily done thanks to neuroplasticity. Again and again, I'll go back to that. Neuroplasticity means tendencies and habits can be changed. It is only a wrong practice we have had. It can be substituted by a better practice. Okay. Right. Let me just proceed further. We will again have some questions towards the end. Now, yes, meditation, some ideas about it. And I want to just run one video here. Just listen to that carefully. This is by one of the famous authors and famous person by name Daniel Goleman. Daniel Goleman, he is the originator of what is called emotional intelligence. But what is he going to talk about? His latest book is one of the latest books recently has written. I'm going to give you a snapshot of two books. One book is Meditation and Attention. Just listen to this.
What's surprising, at least to scientists, is that the benefits from meditation show up right from the beginning. You can do, for example, mindfulness. That's a very popular meditation. If you do mindfulness practice 10 minutes a day, or 10 minutes 3 times over the course of a day, something remarkable happens to your attention. And that's the fact that it has to do with the fact that we're all multitasking these days. You know, people on average look at their email about 50 times a day. They look at their Facebook 20 some times a day. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. There's Instagram, there's your phone calls, there's whatever it is you have to do. And what this means for attention is that we're challenged, that focused attention is an endangered species. However, we need that focus to get work done well. So it's a real problem. And meditation, it turns out, even at the beginning, has some of the answer. It goes like this. When you're really intensely focused on that one thing you have to do or you want to do, the paper you're writing or the project you're working on, and then you think, oh, I better check my email. And then that leads to your Facebook, and that leads to the phone call. We call this multitasking. The brain actually does not do multitasking, doesn't do several things at once in parallel. Rather, it works in serial, and it switches very rapidly from one thing to the next. Then when you go back to that project or that whatever it was you were so focused on, but your concentration had been at a very high level before you started doing the other things, now it's much lower, and it takes a while to ramp up to that same level. Unless, and this is so interesting, unless you've done that 10 minutes of mindfulness, focused on your breath, for example, just watched it in and out, noticed when your mind wandered, brought it back. That's the basic move in meditation. And if you do that, it turns out just 10 minutes of practice nullifies that loss of concentration. And this works, for example, for people who might do mindfulness in the morning. It will wane during the course of the day, but if you do 10 more minutes at lunch, 10 more minutes at a break in the mid-afternoon, it helps you through the day stay concentrated. So that is a very palpable, concrete payoff from daily meditation that works for beginners. There are many others too. For example, in terms of handling stress. I mean, we're all stressed out these days. And beginners in mindfulness or other meditations, it turns out, right from the get-go, have a better reaction to stress. What that means is that, and we see this in brain function, the area of the brain which reacts to stress, called the amygdala. It's the trigger point for the fight or flight or freeze response. It's what makes us angry all of a sudden or anxious all of a sudden. The amygdala is quieter. It's calmer in the face of stress, and this lets us be calmer in the face of stress. And this is another benefit that we see right from the beginning. Because meditation has been found to work so well with anxiety and depression and possibly PTSD, where that's being looked into, one of the areas that seems promising is meditation with attention deficit disorder. In a way, this is a no-brainer because at base, in essence, every kind of meditation retrains attention.
So, if you see this wonderful video by this person, who is the author of Emotional Intelligence. He's the first person who said IQ versus EQ. He said EQ is more important for the IQ to work better. We find people with a lot of IQ unable to bring it to what I can say use, because the EQ part is not balanced. Either they are anxious or angry, or I see the excellent person, in terms of capabilities, but you will find their ability to get along well with people as team players, all that becomes very, very difficult. So in the last relaxation exercise or the yoga physical exercise that you did, chair yoga, you find towards the end, you are basically given certain feelings to generate called gratitude. See, gratitude is a great, a very important thing to be cultivated in today's context. And that helps you to develop emotional intelligence. See, he says, Daniel Goleman says, gratitude is a very important concept in emotional intelligence. So patience, all these things. But the key ideas in this particular video he talks about is, this is his latest book. Again, well-researched, he's a Harvard professor, journalist. Number one, the multitasking is one source of stress. See, we all do multitasking. Focused attention can greatly reduce stress. This was a point even highlighted by Dr. Rahul Mehrotra in the first session. See, if you're able to focus, and I find there's a greatest problem today among the students, they are unable to focus. If at all they can focus, they develop confidence. So what is the way to develop this? Again, a habit. It's only a habit. And focused attention. And he talks about mindfulness, which is nothing but watching the breath. Simply watching the breath. In heartfulness, we say, observe your heart. That's it. It is all a question of settling down, slowing down, and observation. We also observe the body. Even in your previous exercise, you have done that. You have been observing your body as you are doing the chair yoga. Reaction to stress definitely comes. It becomes better if you do this practice often. It is only a simple investment of, let's say, half an hour per day. And he said, it retrains attention. See, it is an exercise in attention. Meditation is an exercise in attention, because we try to sit observing our heart naturally. As we said earlier, arithmetic of thought, remember, there'll be a rush of thoughts, there'll be a hijack by other thoughts, but there is no problem. You come back. The moment you become aware of it, don't fight with thoughts, you come back. Every time you do that, your attention muscles are strengthened. He talked about two things, PTSD. PTSD is actually post-traumatic stress treatment. And there also they introduced meditation. ADD is attention deficit disorder. Okay. So this is basically the book, summary of his book on focus. Now, I just want to run one more video by this gentleman, same author. And this is basically his book called Altered Traits. Again, re-emphasizing the point of atomic habits, that if you practice this, again, the benefits of it. Let me just run this one.
Research, as we say in the book, Altered Traits, is that the more you meditate, the more lifetime hours you put into it, the stronger the lasting traits become. When we surveyed, the more than 6,000 peer-reviewed articles published to date on meditation, we used very strict, rigorous methodological standards. We winnowed them down to about 60. So maybe 1% of all those articles were really well done. And they document very strongly that altered traits are a lasting consequence of regular meditation. And it's not that it's the altered states that's the point. If you look at the classic traditions from which meditation comes to us in the West, all of them talk about the quality of being, the person you become. And we see it in the data in many ways. We see it in cognitive changes, we see it in behavioral changes, and most importantly, we see it in neurological changes. The neuroscience of meditation is really getting stronger and stronger. It's pretty spectacular, and it shows that brain function and perhaps even structure in long-term meditators becomes different, and becomes different in ways that are actually predicted in classic meditation texts. Now, the good news is that there's a dose-response relationship in meditation. Apparently, from what we can tell, the longer you do it, the more benefits you get. So, for example, right from the beginning, there are attentional benefits, there are stress benefits, you're more resilient under stress, but we see this even more strikingly in people who have been longer-term meditators, people who have done meditation daily for, say, several years. There you see, in terms of attention, things that don't show up with the beginners so much. You see that, for example, they're more present. There's a strict test of this in cognitive science called the attentional blink. The attentional blink means you get lost in one thought and you don't notice what's happening the next moment. And this happens, of course, to all of us ordinarily, but longer-term meditators seem to have this less. That means they're more present to the moment. Longer-term meditators are able to better focus in the midst of distractions. This is kind of common sense, because meditation in essence is training in attention. The basic move in meditation is you're focusing on one thing or on a particular attentional stance. The mind-wandering circuitry, which is well known in neuroscience, the mind-wandering circuitry kicks in. People's mind wander on average 50% of the time, research at Harvard tells us. And so at some point when you're trying to do your meditation, your mind will wander. We're wired that way. The key is, do you notice that it wandered? Once you notice your mind has wandered off and you bring it back, you're strengthening the circuitry for focus, for attention. And just like going to the gym and working out for a long, years and years, doing reps, you get bigger muscles and more strength and fitness. The same thing happens in the mind. The mind is a mental gym.
Yeah, so I think that is the essence of that altered traits. It essentially means the practice, 20 minutes that you invest every day or 30 minutes you invest every day, has an impact on the rest of the day. And the mind wandering circuit, which is very natural because of the random nature of the thoughts, we talked about it earlier, 70,000 and all that. And if you meditate, what happens is, due to this neuroplasticity, there is a habit that you are creating in you, which is you are trying to notice that mind is moving away. Thoughts are just catching it up. Then come back, then come back, then come. A few times you do, automatically, you are able to focus better and be in the present. So this is the benefit, scientific benefit of this meditation, as basically explained by one of the world's well-known authors and originators of this concept called emotional intelligence. He has written on focus, and he said that's an asset for people. We tell this to students. If you can focus, nothing like that. And that is what we are trying to do in Heartfulness Campus, trying to introduce this to various students and cultivate this habit slowly. It's a good habit to do. Now, the next one we want to understand is, what is this meditation? You are going to experience it in the afternoon. Here we are only giving certain ideas of meditation, certain benefits of meditation, even from the well-known researchers. So just to give a meditation, there are a lot of myths about meditation, there are a lot of ideas about meditation, but we want to present one particular framework that we use. This morning, Dr. Rahul Malhotra talked about a book called The Heartfulness Way. There, this particular framework is presented by our global head guide called Daji Kamlesh Patel. He has given this framework, which is very, very useful to understand what it is all about. There'll be a lot of talk about it. I mean, you'll experience it in the later part of the day, but it's very, very simple. What does it say? So we take simply two broad aspects. One is you are very focused. This is one. As opposed to that, we have an unfocused, chattering mind. On the other side, we try to put in a lot of effort or struggle to achieve focus. But despite our effort, we may be still unfocused. But you can put in effort and achieve focus. That is possible. Okay. But is it possible for you to focus effortlessly? Okay. Without much of effort, naturally, if we can focus, that would be the best thing to have. And without any effort, if I am unfocused, that is no problem. That is just randomly allowing mind to go wherever it wants. It can be a relaxation. So we say this is daydreaming. No effort, unfocused, just allow it to go. Daniel Goleman says there is also a way of relaxing. Sometimes you just allow the mind to think whatever it wants. Don't bother. Don't control it. Mind is unfocused. I try to put in a lot of effort, as results in some kind of frustration, dissatisfaction, and so on. But with a lot of effort, I can achieve focus. I can tie the mind to one single idea. There are a lot of training methods like that. Nothing wrong with it, but it is a little bit of difficult to sustain that process in the long run. Concentration is one term that we use to forcefully make the mind focus on one thing. But meditation is, we need to do it effortlessly. Then it becomes enjoyable. It becomes a natural process to take to. This is the idea of meditation. It's an effortless focus. When you do that, we don't use the term concentration. We use another term called absorption. You are absorbed. So this is one of the ideas that you should keep at the back of the mind. Now also, what is the object of meditation? That can make a lot of difference. For example, you watch a horror movie or a tragic movie, you're definitely focused without much effort. But what happens at the end? There is a certain heaviness, certain what you call, heaviness of the heart. That's why we always say in this heartfulness meditation, Take a few moments every now and then and see how you feel at that moment. Feeling is very important. Just see how you feel. Are you feeling heavy, feeling light, feeling relaxed, feeling agitated? Because feeling is the language of the heart. Thoughts are the language of the mind. Feeling is the language of the heart. Now, on the other hand, go to a very serene, calm place. Definitely, you are also absorbed there. But here, you get a much different impact. So, object of meditation is very important. So, what are the key ideas of meditation? Meditation is one integrated practice that addresses several aspects of stress. So, what are the main things, problems of stress? Attention, the amygdala hijack, which is the stress, attention and stress. These two, that's what mainly as suggested by the experiments, which Daniel Goleman summarized in his video. The ideas of meditation, now we summarize, it is a relaxation. Please note, it's a complete relaxed technique. You will see it in the afternoon. Secondly, it helps you to slow down. And we talked about the power of pause to handle amygdala hijack, immediate reaction. Meditation helps you. That is what even Daniel Goleman's video said. It helps you to deal with stress. Gentleness, it's not hard. No, it's not like weightlifting. In weightlifting, you have to put in a lot of effort. It's not like that. It is a very soft, relaxed, gentle approach, not hard. Settling down, you just slowly settle down, letting it happen. Passive, but yet broadly maintain some focus. Okay, we will be taught how to do that in the afternoon. Settle down to the heart. Just have some idea here and be anchored on it. More importantly is what? A kind of awareness, attention. Not narrowed down, but a broader, settled down state of mind. And if this is practice cultivated, brain automatically, the subconscious mind keeps track of these experiences and slowly alters our natural response in the daily life also to a stressful situation. So the experiment that they said is long-term meditators are basically able to respond to these situations in a very natural way. And here are some researchers. Sarah Lazar has written a lot of books. Meditative mind is less prone to stress. Lower activation of the amygdala. It's not that amygdala is not active. It must be active. That's the nature's, what you call, design. But see, animals also suffer from this. They also suffer from this. There is a great experiment that was done by a Russian scientist, Pavlovian theory, they say. Whenever a cat came to drink some milk, and the cat was offered milk, suddenly a dog was left in there and scared the cat. That seemed to have produced some what you call acid flows or some kind of secretions in the system that really affected its digestion, and it was not able to really take what it really likes. So that is the amygdala problem. Second important research findings by Richard Davidson. I'll show you one more video of this person. Meditation increases the bandwidth of executive part of the brain. Better emotional regulation, rational thinking. Emotional regulation means stress is basically managed. It is not that it is absent. We become stress fit to deal with it. Lastly, it improves, this is by Yi Yuan Tang, meditation improves attention control, emotion regulation, and also self-awareness. What do you mean by this self-awareness? We are doing that in your chair yoga. You are doing it slowly, some of the actions. As you're doing, you are becoming aware of yourself. So if I am self-aware of the reaction, it's not that I can avoid the reaction, but the moment I'm aware of it, I'm able to deal with stress better. So here is another video, which is basically based on a scientific research that was done in University of Wisconsin. And this was quoted very widely. This is by Richard Davidson. Just watch this video.
Science has contributed to our understanding of the effects of meditation on the brain and body.
The research that we've done on meditation in the brain has focused on two major domains that meditation actually affects. One is attention, and the other is emotion. And what we have discovered is that the circuits in the brain that are important for regulating both attention and emotion can be transformed by meditation. The 30,000-foot goal is to use the scientific research to understand the nature of suffering and how it can best be alleviated. And Mingyur Rinpoche was one of our first long-term practitioners.
This will be strapped onto the arm, and we'll get your ratings of how...
That's normal, without meditation?
Yes, without meditation.
Usually when you do this kind of research with either brain electrical measurements or MRI, it takes a lot of what we call post-processing to look at the data. And what post-processing means is simply lots of computer algorithms churning at the data after the data is collected. And it often takes many days of computer processing to extract these really weak signals in a lot of noise. It's finding a needle in a haystack. With Mingyur Rinpoche, we didn't need any fancy post-processing. We actually were able to see a signal with our naked eye. Of course, the first thing we thought is that there's artifact and there's something wrong, because this just is not something that we typically would see. And so then we had to go through the entire recording system and take everything apart and put it back together before we convinced ourselves that this is actually real. Then when we discovered that it was real, it was really quite amazing because nobody had ever seen these kinds of signals before for this length of time. And what we were looking at are gamma oscillations in the brain. They're very fast frequency brain oscillations, and they're seen in any ordinary person, but they're seen for very short periods of time, typically less than 1 second. They also don't have such large amplitude. And when Mingyur Rinpoche was meditating, these signals were large, they were highly synchronized, and they lasted for many minutes. They lasted for the entire time that the meditation session was in progress. And that's what made them very visible. So that was really a very important moment because we knew that from a scientific perspective, there was a there there. We can see that a person who meditates for even just 2 weeks, 30 minutes a day, shows a different pattern of brain activity than when they started 2 weeks before. And that is really important because it suggests that the brain really is plastic, that we really can make these changes, and that it actually doesn't take that much. A total of 7 hours of practice was sufficient to change the brain in very objective, measurable ways. Well-being and warm-heartedness can be cultivated. We can think of them almost as skills, which can be enhanced through certain kinds of practice.
So this is the kind of experiments they are doing. The person whom you saw, there's a great one that was done in University of Wisconsin. that was basically done on a Buddhist meditator by name Mingyur Rinpoche. You can see he has a lot of YouTube videos. He talks on meditation. So that is just to highlight the benefits. Now they do a lot of research on this brain waves and functions, the normal beta state, slightly go relaxed when you basically do some deep breathing, you go to the alpha state, resting state. Then they try to go further, deeper and deeper. And he was mentioning about the gamma waves of oscillations being measured. So much, I'm saying, the scientific research is being done on the importance. In heartfulness, the focus is more on the heart. The reason, there's going to be a lot of talk about it. It's basically at the physical level, heart is connected to every other part of the body. And heart is considered to be the, important organ, that really is connected with a lot of emotional aspects like love, compassion, empathy, which is all Daniel Goleman says emotional intelligence. So there it becomes very, very critical for leadership, especially when you have to basically manage a team. That becomes important. And for those people who are also spiritually inclined, you can go one step further. There is a lot of heart-based testing. So they have found Igor Grossman, meditation lowers the heart rate variability, improves heart-brain coherence. A very interesting thing, research on heart-brain coherence. Sometimes we see, decision-making, we do in management research, decision-making based on heart, okay? Heart plays an important role in receiving intuition because you learn to listen to your feelings. That's the language of the heart. So it plays a critical role in developing this intuition. Later on, you will know about the brighter mind and all that rest of the programs. Very interesting sessions are there that will highlight these aspects. So what does meditation ultimately do? The science of it reduces this default mode network randomly rushing through. You're able to manage the thoughts better. And you also can ignore the negative thoughts, though you are negatively biased. And there are many forms available. Heartfulness is, focus is balance, a balanced state of mind, heart-mind integration. It has its roots in Raja Yoga. In mindfulness, the emphasis is more on being present now and being aware. Say, be aware of your breath, and it's all mind training. So in heartfulness also, automatically you become, once you focus on the heart, automatically breath awareness also happens naturally. So these are some of the important aspects. Now, if you look at the process of meditation, it is extremely simple. This will be taught to you in the afternoon. I'm just giving it to you, just a flavor of it, just to say how simple and natural it is. We sit comfortably, we relax the body, we rest our attention on the heart. That's all, as simple as that. We can all do it very easily. And we just have a gentle thought, just to focus, that your attention is being drawn inwards, right? By something like a light which is already present. That is just to give the mind an object of direction and remain passive and observe, as simple as that. Don't struggle. But what is very important is we should not concentrate, as we have seen in the framework. And the most important part of the meditation is the rush of thoughts that will come. You need to learn to ignore it. If we can do that, then nothing, there is no problem. Then it is, we are not controlling the thought, but we are simply regulating it. So that's the idea behind meditation. You don't have to worry about it. This is exactly going to be, we will experiment this in the afternoon, experience this, because this basically helps you to a state of absorption by the effect of what is called transmission. This will be illustrated later, but I'm just basically presenting to you how simple it is. A 20-minute practice, no struggle, nothing. It is a very, very natural relaxation. That is the important thing. The last one I will just touch on very briefly on the food side, general principles only, because specifically what food you have to eat, that becomes a subject by itself, food and nutrition, but some general principles. What is that? Number one, human body is a self-healing system. That we have already said. Listen to the body. Very, very important. How do you listen? When you feel hungry. So principle number one, eat only when you are hungry. But what do we do in our general practice? We have a systematic morning breakfast, lunch, dinner, evening snacks. There is something called midday meal. In some places it's called midday, etc. So we eat for time, but we never listen to the body when it actually needs the food. And also another technique, they say drink water only when you're thirsty, because the body needs at that time. Now, it is always preferable to have an early dinner. What is the reason? Because you are giving sufficient time for the digestion to happen and the energy is available while you're sleeping for repair work. Fasting. Today it's become a very, very important thing. Go to internet and type in Google intermittent fasting. So much comes in. But we have seen this fasting as a very, very important aspect of managing our overall stress also. Because physical and mental, they are basically correlated. And intermittent fasting is basically the gap that you give between one food and another food allows sufficient gap. Okay, ultimately you achieve 16-hour gap and all that. There is different things, but do it stage by stage depending upon your present situation. But fasting is extremely beneficial. One of the techniques suggested to us is when you're having some ailment, just fast, because all the energy is giving to the body to self-heal, to do the repair work. If at that time I eat heavily, then the energy is not available. It goes for digestion. Now, whatever we ate goes for digestion. Fasting makes all energy available for dealing with the problem to do repair work. The body will heal by itself. So, listen to the body is the key. Body tells you what it needs. Rest when needed. Simple relaxation. Again, body tells you need rest. Respect the body. Not a heavy dinner is definitely not a good idea. So these are some general principles. Then comes what you eat. There several options are available. There is this, one of the things that talked about is low carbs, high fat diet, LCHF they call it. And so many things are there. So generally the advice seems to be, we need to balance carbs, carbohydrates, protein, and fat in a balanced way. Then that helps a lot in our managing the food part of it. So these are general ideas. So finally, we need to be centered, mentally be centered and try to maintain certain calmness. Meditation helps you to achieve this. Then it becomes a natural way to deal with stress. So stress is not just something to be handled in isolation. And many of these benefits are available with meditation. So the balance that you achieve in meditation reduces your default mode network of the brain, monitor and manage random thoughts, ignore the negative thoughts, a relaxed concentration plus reduced mental chatter is what we aim at achieving. So I think I will just stop with this. And if there are any questions, there is time, we can take it. Otherwise, anytime you can reach out to us, any of us, we will be very happy to share our experience with you.